Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your businesses, your business, to kind of get a clue about what's happening out there on the political front. And, and that's a great way of, I think we got to take care of our business on many different levels, and that includes being aware of what's happening when it comes to those who want to govern us. And so lots of talk, lots of conversation these days on what's happening in places like Iowa and New Hampshire. And always like to talk to my our very good friend here on the program, Felicia Cravens. She is a regular guest on our program. Plus, she is an editor over there at the Free Radical Network. What's the website over there?
Yeah, freeradicalnetwork.com. Actually, today we just putting out some information on people who keep getting beaten up over climate change. So we're trying to help people, equip them on the issues so that they can get past people's talking points and really understand issues.
Yeah, well, very good. We need to get past those crazy talking points. And I tell you, the problem is that the left controls the narrative. It really does, because it controls the media. And it makes it really difficult for challenging for our side. Regardless of how much truth is on the side of liberty, it's very difficult to articulate that in the context of our culture now. Pravda has nothing over our media because, we have enough a little bits of conservative media here and there to make it not look like, a lockstep ideological platform like they had in the Soviet era. And so it looks free enough to make us duped into thinking it's a free media, but it couldn't be further from.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because one of the things that I just read this morning at TJ Media was a piece about the kind of pop-up articles we're seeing now about how bad air conditioning is, how it's sexist in office buildings to turn the air down too low because women and freezing and all of that stuff, and then other articles that are talking about how bad it is, and it all just happened at once. Now, there was this thing called Journalist a few years ago.
Journalist? What the heck's that?
Right, where a whole network of journalists actually coordinated stories and planned out what they were going to do, and it was exposed, and apparently it was, the whole thing was dismantled, but apparently not now. These things are starting to come up again. Maybe they don't even need an email list back and forth to coordinate stories anymore. They're beginning to do it again, and it's all in the service of, either getting a candidate elected or getting a policy pushed that they just sort of don't want to argue on. They're just going to put out as much as they can, flood the airwaves with an opinion.
I heard of this. These guys were operating in collusion with one another.
Absolutely.
Kind of like price setting. If businesses do that, you got a serious problem when you've got, businesses in collusion for price setting. But I guess it's okay for journalists to do that.
That's what they think, apparently, because the force of their ideas is more important than the integrity that the journalists should have in terms of their allegiance to the truth.
That's another weird word, integrity. I don't hear that much lately either. So, that's interesting, and it makes it really challenging. And that's kind of your deal, isn't it? That's the thing that kind of drives you is trying to change the debate, reframe the debate, do it wherever we can. Really, kind of almost shooting for first downs rather than touchdowns in the way we discuss things. Because although touchdowns are nice, but it's nice to just have game changers. You in my opinion, you kind of play a small game. You know what I mean? And that's how games are won, is by the small game in baseball.
Absolutely. Small ball is important, and here's why. The candidates that are going to be spending the next year talking to people and getting their message out, they're only going to reach the people who are super connected and super tuned in to that sort of thing. But I have the opportunity to influence people around me every day, and if I'm a person who looks knowledgeable, who appears to have the facts, and who can articulate those things in a really quick and powerful way, then I'm going to make a lot more headway with those people, preparing the ground for whoever the eventual candidate is, say, on the Republican side. I will have seeded for them, and they just come along and reap that harvest if I'm doing it right.
Or you'll be assassinated. One of the two will happen. So,
right. Well, I've had the Department of Homeland Security at my events before as a Tea Party leader. Who knows?
Yeah, I appreciated them taking all those pictures of me when I spoke. That was really nice of them. I noticed they never sent me any back, but they were documenting those domestic terrorists.
At the rally that you spoke at for us, absolutely, both of them, there were those vans parked right down the road from us.
Yeah. Maybe.
Just saying.
Feel the love, sister. Feel the love. So talk a little bit about the, what's happening out there in the presidential front. What do you see? What do you like? Or what do you don't like?
Oh, well, everybody's descending on Iowa State Fair this week. There's always been some interesting images that come out of that. It seems that in this one, I didn't know this, but there's this thing called the soapbox there that they invite candidates to get up and make brief speeches in front of people, but it's also sort of a proving ground because they get heckled. There's nobody keeping the people from speaking back to the politicians, and apparently Hillary Clinton ditched that when she was out there.
She avoided it altogether, huh?
Avoided it completely. So that's
See, you think she'd have enough money to line the first 3 or 4 rows with her people that would ask questions she would want asked?
You would imagine that they would have learned that from the last 2 presidential elections, that having the visuals there to support what you're saying is a good strategy.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're falling down on that job.
Well, they got these. What do they call it? Like corn jars? And you put in your corn. Your seedlings there of who you like and who you don't like. And apparently, the independents are really doing well in those jars.
Well, it's funny too because you see so often that some of these events, like caucuses and straw polls and things, they end up being flooded by candidates doing their best very early on to get as many people as they can pay to go to these events and do that sort of voting. I don't know if that's been so prominent this time around. I don't know. It looks like there just might be a lot of people who see a wide field and they want to hear from everybody maybe as long as possible. The only person I've heard of, even remotely, who sounds like they're making noises about getting out, and those have been refuted, has been Rick Perry.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, he got an infusion of cash almost immediately upon this, that news. So, everybody's hanging tough and staying in there. There's not any catastrophic events yet that are knocking candidates out of the Republican side. And the funny thing is there's all that speculation about, say, Al Gore or John Kerry joining the race or Joe Biden joining the race on the Democrat side, which would be loads of fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I generally believe that the more candidates that running, whoever makes it to the top is going to be a more competitive candidate. The more people that go in against Hillary makes me think she could possibly be a more robust candidate in the end. On the other hand, when I look at the situation, I don't see how she gets the nomination. At some point, if I'm a Democrat, I'm sitting there thinking, this person could end up in prison. She could be indicted and put in prison for what she did. And I don't know if the Democrats want to risk that.
Some of her supporters have a hard time believing that they can fail to translate the model that Obama set in his 2 elections into hers. They think this is a fungible thing, that supporters are able to be scooped up, unmasked, and moved to a new campaign without the same person. What they're forgetting is Hillary Clinton is not Barack Obama. She doesn't have that clean slate that he came to the table with. She doesn't have. She's got a record. She's got a record that goes back years that people still remember, and the bulk of people who vote still remember when she and her husband occupied the White House. That's going to be a hurdle to overcome. The young, excited people are not feeling the energy that they did for Barack Obama. She's not getting events like Bernie Sanders in attendance with thousands and thousands of people. I don't know that she's tried very hard yet, but that says something. Now, being the case, if you put Hillary Clinton up against Bernie Sanders and the majority of the country looks at the 2 messages, Hillary Clinton's going to come out on top. You're right.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting to see. I think that there's a lot of troubles there for the Hillary campaign. I think it's a lot more systemic than people realize, and I think she's giving us plenty of reason to see that by a lot of her bizarre behavior. Literally hurting the media to keep them away from her. I mean, that's bizarre.
It is, and I'll tell you, she thinks again that she is Barack Obama, or people are telling her that she is the same cachet as he has. She made a speech recently. She was talking about her social media. She included the fact that now she's joined Snapchat, which is a medium that as soon as you see what is sent to you, it disappears. And she made a joke about that, saying that those records disappear all on their own.
Mm-hmm.
some moxie right there. But I don't think she can pull it off the way, say, Barack Obama would have been able to pull that line off.
No, I don't think so. I think you're absolutely right. What do who have you seen as far as any major shifts? Who's looking better, who's looking worse? Especially post debate. I continue to get shocked over Donald Trump's situation.
Oh, I know. I've seen some polls that say that Trump lost a lot of ground compared to the same poll with the same people pre-debate. But again, all these are national polls, and they're people who really don't follow the issues and haven't dug in really deeply. But the only person you can definitively say helped themselves tremendously by this debate cycle there, the first round of debate, was Carly Fiorina. And we don't have another debate, I think, for another month. Mm-hmm. So that'll be around the time, by the way, that the Iran deal is before Congress. So it'll be interesting to see what the senators do in advance of that debate, talking about the Iran deal and whether the Iran deal becomes the issue of August, September.
What network is doing the next debate? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I can tell you in just a second. I'm sitting here trying to remember. I think it's CNN.
Yeah, it's CNN. I just got that from my producer.
Because it was Jake Tapper.
So that means it's going to be very fair and balanced, finally. It's got to be better than what they did at Fox.
Well, yeah, Fox is getting some pushback for that, too. It's a good thing, I think, that you're looking at the media and skeptical about it. It's a good thing to challenge your media, but it kind of destroys the idea that Fox is our conservative news. I don't like that concept.
No.
I don't like that at all. I want a news organization to give me news. And if you're talking about being, quote, unquote, fair and balanced, then let's talk about all of the things instead of just the right end of things. I think that getting the label that Fox did as our news network, and they're really having to push back on it. Good for them for doing it, but shame on us for adopting Fox as the only voice out there from which you can get news. That's really insular and bad.
Yeah, and I wish our side would tell CNN, hey, why don't you make some money and make headline news into a conservative network, or at least more, less biased network, and let CNN continue to be a rag. And guess what? Your little puny HLN will end up racking in more money than CNN could ever dream of. Because I think our side is interested in more sources than Fox News, especially since Fox News seems like they're really distancing themselves from us.
Well, I think we really do need to look at all kinds of sources. I mean, my journalist feed, my media feed on Twitter, where I get most of my news, I don't watch a lot of television, has everybody from Russia Today to Al Jazeera to everything in between. And I find interesting things all the time that are not getting covered in, the three main networks and Fox and CNN. And I think that's a great habit to get into. It's just very difficult to do that if you get your news from television.
Yeah. Yep. Felicia Cravens, awesome. Always enjoy having her on the show. Give that website one more time.
FreeRadicalNetwork.com.
Check her out all the time. They've got great, constantly updated content over there. And always good to talk to you.
Thanks so much.
All right. When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here can be found over there, including this interview, at usdailyreview.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter. Stay tuned for more.